Oh yeah. So welcome. Um, this is Black Yield Institute. My name is Sho. Uh, I'm the land sovereignty organizer with Black Yield, and our ability to create space for listening to the Cherry Hill community uh, begins and ends with our relationship to land, with our relationship to food, and our relationship to what that looks like in a sovereign context. So as we breathe together, as we spend time together, we are just going to simply have a conversation about what Black land and food sovereignty looks like compared to food apartheid. Uh, we'll have an opportunity to discuss both of these ideas in a way that hopefully makes sense across um, just different demographics of folks and different folks from different backgrounds and things like that. But my goal for tonight's meeting, this is the second iteration of a series of three listening sessions. And so we are doing everything that we can over at Black Yoda Institute to understand uh, the Cherry Hill community's uh, space to be able to address food apartheid in a way that makes the most sense. Um, Most recently, Black Yoda Institute was stewarding the Cherry Hill Community Urban Garden, and we're no longer there. It's right off of Cherry Hill Road. We're preparing to vacate the premises based upon a an issue that erupted over the summer with the Housing Authority of Baltimore City. And so, as we prepare for what next steps looks like, um, one of the biggest things we'll need to do, especially in reading the room, uh, is developing shared language and political education towards what it means when Black people are creating their own solutions towards food apartheid in their own communities, and these systems of change are being uh, disrupted by government institution. And so I would like to begin today's experience with a grounding breath, a grounding collective breath. I believe that if we can find a way to breathe together, we can learn together. And if we can learn together, we can teach the next generation around Black land and food sovereignty. So feel free to censor yourself. If you are driving, feel free not to close your eyes, you know? you know? But let's censor ourselves, no matter where we might be. If it's wrapping our fingers around a steering wheel, or if it's grabbing hold of our knees or straightening our posture, we're gonna inhale here. We're gonna exhale. Gonna inhale here. Gonna exhale. Then we're gonna take one more deep cleansing breath. Inhale here. Take up all your day, everything that might have happened or didn't get to happen today. And then we're gonna sigh it out. Ah. Thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to breathe together. I like that a lot. I'm going to share my screen so that I can reference a presentation that was referenced yesterday. Um, and we're going to just flow through this presentation in a way that's very organic, very intentional. So give me a second as I do that. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna beatbox my way into some like really good grounding music, like on some like boom 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 boom. Y'all see that? All right, I can dig it. I can dig that. All right, so Black land and food sovereignty. We ground our experience um, in this moment, in this image. We try to find our way through, what does listening even mean? In a world where we're actively developing solutions together in order to just address food. Like if anything else, like trying to figure out like what did we eat today? And how does our stomach feel? And what does our stomach feel like without access to healthy food um, in the midst of our day? So we just ground in the reality that will not always be a reality. We're working towards a shift in consciousness at Black Yield Institute, and so that's where we are right now. This is Black land, Black food, Black power.
Yes.
We're centering ourselves in the lessons of Sankofa, the power of storytelling, the power of being able to allow our past to inform our present, um, and elevate our collective consciousness towards a brighter future. Um, I feel that. I feel that in the room this morning. So if we could just begin with your name, if you're a Cherry Hill resident or stakeholder, and why you're here. I'll go first. My name is Sho. I'm not a Cherry Hill resident. I feel that I'm a Cherry Hill stakeholder, and I'm here because um, land insecurity. Land insecurity brought me here. Not having access to fresh foods, fresh produce, and having those solutions taken away from our community in Cherry Hill has brought me to this seat specifically. Um, so that's why I'm here, and I will pass it into the physical room, and then we'll also engage our virtual audience as well.
My name is Shmaya. I am not a Cherry Hill resident. And to summarize, I think I'm supposed to be here. I think that's why I'm here. That kind of stuff.
Nice. Thanks.
I am Janine, and I am not a Cherry Hill resident. I view myself as a stakeholder, I guess, just by being in partnership and community with Black Youth. Why am I here? So I'll echo what I shared yesterday. It's to support with the lift in addressing food apartheid in Cherry Hill. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Michael, would you like to go? Tell me how. Tell me how that happened. Did it? Okay. See what's going on in the streets. The enemy.
Michael might be because on my end, you all mute. Oh, Michael, you're on mute.
Michael, you're on mute. We can't hear you. Yeah. Michael, I don't know if we can hear you or not.
All right, how about now?
Pretty good.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was saying that I lost everybody. I could not hear, I guess, the last person who was talking. Anyway, my name is Michael Campbell. I am not a resident of Cherry Hill. However, I am a stakeholder of food security, uh, land sovereignty for Black people, since the 60s. And I have a stake in having food security be a reality throughout Baltimore City and specifically in Cherry Hill.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Well,
And we have one more person, Stephanie. Stephanie, did you want to introduce yourself to the space?
Hello, I'm Stephanie Bliss. I am a Cherry Hill resident, and I'm here to support getting food security and land sovereignty and whatever I can do to help.
Solid. I appreciate that. So I mentioned that today is going to look a little bit different than yesterday. We do have a recording from yesterday. These are the same slides from that experience, but we will loosely base the strengths of our conversation yesterday around how we're sculpting the conversation for today. So can anybody in the physical space read the definition of food apartheid for me before we continue with this conversation? Mm-hmm.
Is a structural oppression based on race and class that limits access to power and resources related to food and land and results in poor health and poor people.
Thank you for that. And the explanation, the systematic destruction of Black self-determination to control our food, whether by exclusion from agricultural industries, lack of access to arable lands and healthy foods, predatory marketing and capitalism, or other blatant or subtle racist and discriminatory food systems. This inequity is marked by segregation, extreme and concentrated health problems, and low rates of land ownership. So what is food apartheid in Cherry Hill? I'm listening. This is kind of where I take a step back and I record, because there's going to come a time when we'll need to report back out to the Cherry Hill community around what is it exactly that our stakeholders and residents know about food apartheid versus what we're actually communicating about what we know about food apartheid. So my only question, probably for most of the night, is what does food apartheid look like in Cherry Hill? What is it? How like is it a place? Is it a thing? Are we experiencing this real time in this neighborhood or not? If not in Cherry Hill, where else are we seeing food apartheid in Baltimore City, maybe? So I'm leaning back intentionally to allow conversation to happen now.
well, I don't mind jumping in. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, just right out the gate, the issue that the Cherry Hill Urban Garden is dealing with in terms of having to vacate the premises is what occurs to me, and I'm new on the scene. However, the very requirement for Black Yield Institute to have to vacate the premises is apartheid for me, meaning that the efforts that Black Yield Institute has put forth in trying to provide healthy food to the community, a source of healthy food and nutritious food to the community, is now being, shut down due to governmental choices that are being made. And this is a familiar tune, and we all know that this is not anything new, and I'm all for not doing this again in terms of having the government or someone else who does not have our best interest at heart at the helm, at the steering wheel. Um, and that's all I'm going to say for now because I'm driving and I need to stay focused.
Ashe, thank you so much. Any other comments about food in Cherry Hill? What are we seeing on the ground?
I would say for me, I don't see enough establishments that are owned by the people. So you might have a few carryouts, but they're not owned by the people that live in the community, and that have been here. And so the folks that do own those establishments, there's a lot of money that's generated off of the backs of the people, off of our bodies, off of our health. And that money leaves this community. And it is, again, another systematic destruction of Black self-determination to control our food. So that's what I see.
Thank you. I'm definitely seeing the predatory marketing and capitalism. I would even venture to call out imperialism, and how uh, direct the attack has been towards institutions that are building institutions, namely Black institutions like Black Yield Institute, that is essentially building institution, growing food and growing people simultaneously is no. That's not just great marketing. That's actually what Black Yield Institute does in praxis, and thought and reflection and in action, and in evaluation. Um, and this same these same measurements are being taken by predatory systems of capitalism and imperialism, and attacking the way that Black Yield Institute chooses to uh, not only execute the work of Black land and food sovereignty, but this is how we live our lives on a daily basis. This is how we keep the flame. And food apartheid shows up in a way that creates space for um, a lot of pain, a lot of psychological pain, and that being matriculated through generation after generation in a community like Cherry Hill. We may never know the impact that uh, the Cherry Hill Community Urban Garden could have had if it was in place for 12 years versus, the amount of time that it was. Um, but we keep the flame and we move forward towards greater hopes, and we set our sights towards greater parcels of land and such. But food apartheid doesn't stop from there. Um, so I just wanted to share that, because the predatory marketing and capitalism today, versus yesterday, or even in preparing these slides and monitoring these slides that have been prepared, the predatory marketing and capitalism, and imperialism that undergirds and sets up as a foundation food apartheid, uh, it hurts. It hurts the Black psyche. So, what else does it look like? Are there any like structures or institutions that seem to be perpetuating or continuing food apartheid based on these definitions? Like, what does it really mean? What does food apartheid mean to the Black family experiencing poverty?
I would argue that it means being dependent on systems that are improperly set up to keep you in this improper cycle. of healthy foods. It means rather than having access to things that are natural for a baby or a toddler or even an adult to eat, being on things like losing my wording, but being on certain things that keep people only certain access to things that aren't as beneficial to you, or limiting your options for one. Um, it shows up in different ways. I would say one thing that is keeping this system alive is the idea of corner stores, and that's not just necessarily Baltimore. That goes kind of nationwide. Of these ideas of these corner stores who are typically not owned by people of color. Are these one-stop shops for things, but they're also very limited in what they have. They may have a banana stand, but that might be it. Like, they're very limited in the options of the things you can get. It's the milk, it's the bread, it's the eggs, it's the things that there's no alternative options. It's just the things that are consistently kept in the home to keep a perpetual cycle of degradation, really.
As you share that, it makes me think. It makes me think about maybe like what chattel enslavement was like. You get what we give you.
Yeah.
And it's just enough to sustain you.
Yeah.
Because we still need your body, your physical machinery to produce for us.
Absolutely.
And you no longer are producing in the cotton field, but you are producing by being ensnared in the prison system. Yeah. You are producing by having to go to the hospital and have treatment for diabetes or high blood pressure.
Yeah.
So we give you enough to sustain you so that we can still commodify your existence and your children.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
My aunt, who has transitioned into the realm of the ancestors, lived her life with diabetes, and during the last couple of phases of her lifetime here on this planet, I remember witnessing her struggle with food and how food made her feel. On one hand, the sweets and the pies and the greases and the fats, and that kind of girded up alongside. She was a Libra, so it's like this relationship with the foods that she grew up on, and on the other side of that scale was dialysis, and the treatment that had to be done in order to keep her living to an extent. And then her ultimate transition being during a time of the pandemonium, the pandemonium, you see. And so that reminds me of food apartheid. That reminds me of the stories that she held inside of her, that she essentially won't be able to continue to share, based upon like the stories that are lost when somebody transitions into the realm of the ancestors as a result of food apartheid. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I think about that, and I feel that because that structural oppression is one that existed in Jackson, Mississippi. You see? So I think about Cherry Hill often in regards to land and the different things that Black people are experiencing on this site, on this land, and they might not even realize it's happening. And that's the violent part. That's the violent part. That's the subconscious part that I think only plant medicine and psychological healing would be able to heal to an extent. On top of the research and knowledge creation that Black Yield Institute continues to prioritize as an initiative area in our structural development. So what do we see here?
Childhood obesity, don't take it lightly.
Mm. Mm.
Very much targeted. The shopping, the vernacular, the spelling, the person who's holding these of these.
So, and then the two together, childhood obesity, don't take it lightly, and looks like a McDonald's billboard, contributes to obesity because of a lack of healthy foods in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
The logo, I'm loving it. Yeah, very, very multi-level. The wording. Vernacular, the dollar means, right? Because who doesn't want something for $1? Right. So, yeah. Very specific and intentional.
And the supermarket, the word supermarket on the corner store, doesn't look so super to me.
That's a good point. I see multiple levels of the supermarket. So it's like, who owns that market, and are they living on the top floor?
How are they saving?
Mm.
You know, and what do they get to write off? By, I guess, living where they were, so to speak. How much of that whole entire structure is the tax write-off, and helps to build generational wealth that does not get funneled back into that community.
Right. Was the stop sign always there, or were they able to communicate, with their council person in order to make those enhancements based upon the time that they had, being able to own and operate their own place? I see my teeth hurting. Them Laffy Taffies used to get stuck in the in-between, in the secret place. Yeah. The banana Laffy Taffies used to get stuck right in the back, they call it the quiet place. Reserved for much prayer and fasting. I still got pieces of Laffy Taffy back there to this day. I see food stamps on one of the billboards. Food stamps can help. Food stamps can help. Not growing our own food and making decisions about our own food, but food stamps. Really?
Government dependency.
Maya, that's what you lifted up.
That's real. The intersections of food apartheid, huh? Feel that?
Yeah.
What about now? What do we see?
Well, they got a lot of nerve having the word pride up there.
Language.
Kind of talking about, land sovereignty. The trash that we put into ourselves and the trash that we output into, the world. Yeah. I see a cycle. how one thing affects another, influences another, how it there's at least 30 fried chicken spots within a 20-mile radius. So
Yeah. I see black people remaining out of control of the food system from curation and development to distribution to waste.
That's the waste part.
The waste. And what looks to be like a city owned and operated waste management system versus, you know, there's no sign of black folks being able to compost or utilize their own ancestral ingenuity to be able to really like truly handle that within the context of self-determination. It's interesting. Stephanie, I know you still on the call, and you were in attendance yesterday. Do you see anything in this slide that captures your attention today?
I'm trying to. What I'm seeing and what I saw in the last slide was the communities that this is being targeted towards.
Mm-hmm.
The people depicted in the pictures or in the pictures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the people. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody want to read the food sovereignty definition? What is food sovereignty?
food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy, culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture system. It puts the aspirations and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies rather than demands of markets and corporations.
I say.
Thank you. Ashe. Let's breathe with this one. Let's breathe with this one. We're gonna take a deep inhale here. And exhale. And inhale here. And hold it at the bottom of your stomach. I'm gonna release that. Exhale. And then inhale one more time. Once you think you've gotten to the top of your inhale, inhale a little bit more. Then sigh it out. I'm gonna read it again. Food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. It puts the aspirations and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies rather than the demands of markets and corporations. So what's the difference between these images and food sovereignty, what this definition is saying? What would a food sovereign Torres supermarket look like?
Much bigger than that.
Size.
Maybe the whole block around the other side, you know. And different advertising on the building.
Mhm.
Perhaps some fresh produce. You know,
Maybe some fresh produce outside.
outside, yep.
I think, sorry, I think it would look like knowing, like, did the people even want that there?
Mm.
Right? Like, at what point did it become Torres?
Mhm.
Did the people want it there? And if there were efforts to remove it, honoring the removal of it.
So just want to share personal history of mine. I went to Howard for a minute. I really mean a minute. And I worked for the body ecology truck on campus. And Art Henson, who was the owner, created a pyramid of fruit. And I was just imagining that pyramid outside. As you said, you know, the having some produce outside.
Yeah.
And actually having folk have, you know, come up and, you know, buy fruit or produce, you know, right there outside of the store as an attraction to come inside. So, you know, you know, just the life that pyramid used to generate. I mean, people would come and, you know, conversations would be had, you know, around, you know, folks would gather to get their, you know, he had other things as well, trail mix, sandwiches, etc. But, you know, it was a place where people of healthy consciousness would come, and even people who just, you know, just they may not have been of healthy consciousness, but they knew that their food was going to be fresh, and they, you know, they could count on that. So for me, that, you know, it's a place where you can count on being able to get fresh food.
Also knowledge, like
And
that's
knowledge.
a knowledge component,
Correct.
right? That's a game changer for a 3-year-old that just sees oh, that's a triangle, right?
Mhm.
That's an intake of information that they might not necessarily be exposed to, or it's a new way to see it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Art would engage with everybody in a
Yeah.
conversation about raising their consciousness. You know,
Right,
you could not get away with not having a conversation. You know, and it was beautiful, really was.
So intergenerational knowledge transferring.
Yes,
And what kind of pyramid was it?
he built it on. It was a wood built pyramid with shelves, you know, around each side that he, you know, you could put various, you know, pieces of fruit there, or categories of fruit. At the top were grapes, red, black, and green grapes. Just
That's a
saying.
conversation.
Yeah.
Red, black, or like, whoa, red, black, and green. That's a conversation in itself.
Yeah.
It's good. Stephanie, you had your hand raised.
Hello. So what I was thinking about when I was looking at these was like who owns it, and what if there were people in the community it could provide jobs for?
It's a great point. Great point.
I think one of the things when I typically think of corner stores, I think of the fast food, the breakfast sandwiches, the things that are not of proper consumption at that early in the morning. And I think one of the ways that food sovereignty would look different here would be other options, alternatives. I mean, it could be a sandwich. It doesn't have to have egg and cheese and sausage and the bacon, egg, and cheese. Like it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be limiting. It doesn't have to look like candy at the front, candy and chips at the front. It could be structured completely differently.
That makes me think about, the food programs that the Black Panthers used to put on. Stuff, get money from the community, from not governmental money, but money to supply food for, but not necessarily money. I guess it could have been, donations, folks just donating food for lunch programs, breakfast programs, and just for the community, so when you were speaking, that's what the image came up, would be an actual, morning program for kids on their way to school to come get some nourishing food, and then maybe on their way home, who knows?
Yeah.
I feel that.
More collaborative to the community, more collaborative to the youth.
Yeah.
And what they see and what they pass by going to whatever. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then conversations
Mm-hmm.
about the food.
Absolutely. Because everyone knows their neighborhood corner store, man. Or
That's
somebody.
right.
It's good.
Everybody know their neighborhood corner store. Yeah.
One of the things that you shared was that fruit food pyramid, it generated life. Not just like in healthy produce, but just the conversation that took place. And so what other areas of sovereignty could be generated and birthed when we really address the food apartheid in the community? So
Yeah.
Thank you for lifting that.
You're feeding the mind as well.
Speaking of feeding the mind, think about the Laffy Taffies. They always had a joke in the inside sleeve of the Laffy Taffy. You feel me?
Yes.
And so it's like even food sovereignty in that, what does it look like to have a collaborative of candy makers that are willing to create their own systems of ingenuity and creativity, even if it's through sharing stories, jokes that they might have grown up on as kids, and being able to use that as a marketing technique for how they develop their rapping. Like, what does that look like? To have vegan candies that Cherry Hill students in our local schools grow up on, so that they can have these memories of healthy foods getting stuck in their teeth and being able to laugh about it later. I haven't had a Laffy Taffy in a while, but I can't get it off my mind. And there's a reason, And so like food sovereignty for me looks like, what does a Taffy Laffy look like? Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? The sixlets, like what was actually inside of those things, and what does it look like to create systems of engagement where we can develop our own colors, our own flavors, and have those flavors be tasteful and available and accessible to our communities. That sounds good. Sounds consistent.
Yeah, instead of a joke, a piece of knowledge.
Piece of knowledge.
Yeah.
Piece of research that we might have learned a week before. Yeah. I don't want to skip this, but I don't want to play it either. Land is the basis of independence.
Which is why we see it being taken away.
Exactly.
There was too much movement towards the independence.
Way too much movement
Way too
towards
much.
the independence, especially with Chuck. Thank you, Bob Malcolm. What is Black land and food sovereignty? Definition: a movement building approach to addressing food apartheid, which asserts the right and self determination of Black or African peoples to healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food in arable land. Action oriented and serves to build power and restore connections to the earth, living beings, and cultural practices. It's an action pathway centered on building political, economic, and social power, resulting in the control of capital and other resources, and asserts an analysis and stance toward equity and away from colonialistic practices that perpetuate imbalances in access and ownership of land and food resources. So, colonialistic practices, what does that look like? What does that look like in the world of food apartheid? How is food apartheid a colonial experience? What do we mean by that? Talking about the globe. I know we're talking about history. You mentioned chattel slavery earlier.
Controlling what we have access to in reference to her common radar. Which you can eat is what I'm going to give you. So you have option for you to think the best of it. But
Privilege versus human right.
Restoring the connection to the earth, living beings, and cultural practices.
And another thing that stands out is when it reads about imbalance in access and ownership of land and food resources. Oftentimes in any society, ownership, what precedes ownership is like income or job. And so how sometimes that gets interrupted for people, whether it's because of being incarcerated or various other things. So I see it on a whole nother level. It's not just eat what we tell you to eat, but it's more sinister, right? Will interrupt your ability to even have access.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a good word, sinister. Bad word.
It's a familiar word.
Yeah.
It's familiar. The energy that goes into like planning for the grand harvest. Essentially, the Black Yield Institute last stand towards standing our ground and communicating like, nah, we're not going anywhere actually. That grand harvest event and being able to have the opportunity and the privilege to play the role that I played in that experience. I would say that was the approach. When we think about the art of war and the fact that at the end of the day, you have folks that are operating in a way that's antithetical to the movement, antithetical to Black land and food sovereignty. And their intentions, I think maybe the best word for it might be. So I appreciate that word being brought up because I don't know if I had language before. I don't know if I had that language until this moment to help contextualize what I felt when I was in it, And so that's why like these listening sessions have been eye-opening. So I appreciate everybody's involvement. As we ground ourselves into what we've listened to so far, I want us to be able to take the rest of this time to just reflect and create space with these definitions of what Black land and food sovereignty looks like. We can breathe with these things, we can communicate with these things, and hopefully develop a shared language. Hopefully develop a shared language towards, okay, if Black land and food sovereignty be movement building, then what's my role? What's my role in the movement? And I would invite us to take this last 10 to 12 minutes to not only consider that, but speak with the comrade that might be next to you. Engage with the chat if you're in the virtual space. As we ask ourselves with the rest of our time, what is my role in this movement and how can I be a part of it? Because this won't be the last time that Black Yield Institute or any movement building Pan-African institution faces pushback or adversary, adversity. Yeah, that's the word. It won't be the last time, but I know that we're prepared. We're preparing for our fight. We're preparing for our stand, and we're preparing to live in peace as well. We're preparing to live in peace as well, because keeping the flame is deeper than any bureaucratic system of white supremacy or food apartheid. I truly believe that we're creating systems here in this moment and the next moments to be able to stand and exist inside of this. This is it right here. This is it right here. This is where I want to live. This is where I want to spend most of my time. And so this is where we're going to teleport ourselves. We're going to teleport ourselves right over into this diagram, into this mural. And we're going to imagine futures for ourselves. And we're going to ask ourselves, well, where do I find myself in Black land and food sovereignty? And if you need any assistance or any support in trying to figure out what that actually looks like, take a look at this mural, because that's where we at. Solid. So I'm gonna see what it looks like to play some music from this little shindiggery right here. And we just gonna vibe out for the last couple of moments, because we celebrate and we rest in these opportunities. It's my jam right here. Not the ad specifically, even though it's a solid ad. I think Black land and food sovereignty has space for advertisement. However, this is the jam. So we're gonna let this ride out. Thank you, Stephanie, for being a part of our virtual community.
Oh,
I appreciate you.
appreciate you. Thank you.
And we here. Got any questions? Okay.
But the roads take a broad mountain. To make it never work. It's just don't you see? Don't give a damn. I would you up with the shaking sleep in the trees. Everything that is sound about it. You're so different. You're like I'm gonna get you. And I'm going. I wanna sleep just
in our studios here.
The perfect podcast is out there. And with over 2 million of today's most talked about podcasts available, Spotify is the best place to find the one you love. Whatever you're into, get way more into it with the podcast. Find the one you've been listening for right now, free.
Stephanie, your mic's on, FYI.
It's not recording.
It's not recording.
Appreciate you, Stephanie.
So
Right on. God bless
just, you want to end?
you. Yeah, you could just.
Oh, wait, we have something in the chat. I'll let you handle that. I'm gonna copy it over here. It's still recording.
Cool. I see. Not exactly sure. Okay.
How you doing?
Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. I appreciate it. And even your willingness to communicate that via text is important for me, because I'm able to connect with your words in a way that's intentional and vibrant. So just thank you for choosing to take the time to respond in that fashion and in that way.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
Mhm.
And let folks get out of here a little bit early, but we're recording your note, and we'll be able to communicate with you moving forward, regarding what your role in the work looks like, in connection with Black Youth Institute and other movement builder organizations in the Cherry Hill neighborhood and across this nation. So we with you.
All right. Peace.
All right, peace.
Thank you.